Hey everybody, I'm Tanner Knight. Welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. Today we're going to be delving into another guitar from the Gregg collection, which is a collection of guitars that my good friend Gregg has let me showcase on this channel in the hopes that we can find a new owner for these. So this guitar is for sale. Keep that in mind throughout the course of this video. If you fall in love, then maybe it can be yours. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about another Kramer. This is finally, for some of you maybe, the one that you've been waiting for, the Kramer Barretta. This is a 1987 Kramer Barretta. And what makes the Kramer Barretta special and what makes this one special? Well, first of all, it's the guitar of none other than Eddie Van Halen, our favorite shredder from the 70s and 80s. And 90s and 2000s, I guess. But this was his kind of first association with Kramer. This was the guitar that they built for him, and he took it out and rocked it. And a lot of people were turned on to Kramer because of Mr. Eddie Van Halen. And it's kind of purpose-built for him, you know, a little shredder style. You'll find a flatter fretboard radius, a single slanted humbucker, and they kind of switch who provides the humbucker in the Barretta. This guitar is introduced in 1983, and those early Barrettas, I do believe, have Schaller-made humbucking pickups. But the later you get, I believe 1985 or 86 is when they turn into all Seymour Duncans. This pickup is original to the guitar, so that's kind of nice to have the original. I don't know the exact model, but Seymour Duncan is what we got there. So it's a really good sounding pickup, and we're going to hear it in a second. But what else makes this guitar special beyond it being Eddie Van Halen's Barretta, which it's not his guitar, but again, he kind of lent his name to Kramer to endorse this particular guitar. But this one, you can see, has a special shattered paint job is what it's called. And it's shattered glass, it's airbrush, pretty cool. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally think this one's one of the sexier ones. I don't know, it's not super alluring, but I like it a lot, and it certainly doesn't detract from the guitar. It makes it a little rare because these airbrushed paint jobs were done by one man in Kramer, and from what I can tell, they were only done between 1985 and 1987. If you have information otherwise, if you have an 88 or an 84 or even earlier or later than that, let me know. But I do believe that's the sweet spot, the 85 to 87 for the Dennis Kline years of airbrushing these Kramer bodies. He did a ton in a lot of different flavors, including a samurai sword. There's some Comet ones, which we might see in the future. I guess no spoilers, you've already seen it. But we have some other designs from Dennis Kline in this era, and they are generally pretty cool. They're not antiquated, or they don't look old or lame or anything like that. They're pretty unique and artistic, and they hold their value in my estimation. I'm sure other people might think otherwise, but you know, that's what we got. So this is a Dennis Kline airbrush design. And the beauty with airbrushing is it's done by hand. So literally this is one of this guitar. There's no other ones exactly like it. I'm pretty sure there are other shattered guitars. I've seen a few online. So it's not like there's no other of this general design, but each one will be slightly different due to the hand nature of how the airbrushing is done. Otherwise, with this guitar, we do get a Floyd Rose. That's something that you'll find pretty much across the board on Kramers of this era and most eras of that, for that matter. They did start out with what was called, I believe, the Rocktron tremolo, but it was brass on brass instead of steel on brass, so it would wear prematurely and it wouldn't hold a tune. We do have the Floyd Rose on this one, and it is a nice German-made Floyd Rose with the original whammy bar and a single volume potentiometer. No tone, just, I guess, keep it simple. One pickup, one knob, that's what Eddie liked. The one thing to note about this guitar is that it is an era-correct maple neck, but it's not the original. And that's not terribly uncommon with these Kramer guitars from what I can tell. A lot of people would buy these guitars and you say, you know what? I want to try this neck. I want to try that neck. I want to see what would happen if I did this or did that. And it was kind of accepted as a guitar culture to swap out parts and necks, and you can tell it is a bolt-on neck, so very simple, easy access to do that. Just 4 screws and you can throw on another neck. And that was really part of the appeal of these guitars. They were the young person's everyman guitar, really. And the original neck was damaged in shipping. I'm not sure if that means the whole thing cracked or whatever, but Gregg had that sent off to get repaired. And in the meantime, he had this era correct 87 Barretta neck, I believe it was from a Barretta, and it's the maple version, which most of these graphic ones have rosewood fretboards, so having the actual maple fretboard with the graphic is kind of unique. And again, these Kramers were swapped back and forth and mixed and matched their whole era, so that's not something that's too detrimental to the value of the guitar. Again, it's period correct, it's just that it has the maple fretboard. And it is a maple fretboard that is slapped on here. You can see the different grains, instead of it just being a single maple neck with fretboard like Fender would do sometimes. But it is an actual maple neck. Interesting that you don't get a skunk stripe on the back. I believe most of the Kramer maple necks with maple fretboards do get a skunk stripe, but not the case with this one. Yeah, this one looks like a 3-piece maple neck, and we have the pointy beak style headstock with the pyramid style Kramer font, which what that means is instead of all letters being the same exact size, they kind of taper towards the beak. So they are 3-dimensional in their own individual right, and then the logo tapers down the headstock. With the Floyd Rose, you also get a locking nut, pretty standard. And with the Kramers, you also get the Allen wrenches on the back. So that's always a nice little feature. This guitar is not terribly heavy, so I would say it's probably made of poplar or basswood. Eddie was pretty famous for not caring what tone wood he ever had on his guitars. He thought that the tone was in the fingers and the pickups, and that's what we've gone for in this particular case. So with this 87 neck, we get kind of a small volute, very small. I feel like they kind of come in and out of size with Kramer, but this is a tilt back style maple neck. So no scarf joint to get that tilt back on there. It's just built in just like that. Looks like a 13 to 15 degree tilt back if I had to guess. And I think these are Schaller made black tuners. They're pretty small, not like miniature, but they are pretty low profile for this smaller beak headstock. We still have 22 frets, and I would call them medium jumbo, I guess. I don't know what they are exactly, but they're slightly bigger than what you'd find on this era of Fender or Gibson or PRS or anyone else. So that's medium jumbo is my best guess. You can see that we do, well, maybe you can see, but we have an E serial number on our neck plate here, and it's a high one, 12,000. And if you caught our last week's video, you'll remember that the E corresponds to 86, early 87, and I guess the higher number that you go, the better chance you have of it being an 87. So this is a 12,000 number. They went from 1,000, 1,001, 1,002, all the way up to 14 or 15,000 in the E's. Not entirely sure. It's kind of hard to nail that down. But every year after 86, 87, 88, 89, and maybe into 90, they kept that format where they tried to match a letter, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and a serial code to vaguely give you an idea when it came from. This one doesn't have any neck pocket cracks or anything. Let me see if I can get that in the light. Very, very well-made polyurethane finished guitar. And with the poly finish, you don't get any finish checking or cool stuff like that. But you do get the satisfaction and knowledge of knowing that this thing is forever encased in a layer of plastic. And although the plastic will yellow over time, this one hasn't yellowed hardly at all. This one looks very, very crisp and clear and gray, and the whites are white. So I would say that as far as this particular design goes, the shattered glass, you can probably find them a lot more yellowed, depending on how many bars they were played in the 80s and 90s. and how much smoke they were really exposed to over that time. But what the poly does is it also kind of protects the wood from cracking underneath as well. At least that's kind of what I gather based on nitro having more problems with finish cracking because the wood is doing what it's doing underneath the finish, where the poly seems sort of immune to that. But there's no cracks. There's very few dents. There's a tiny little dent here. I wouldn't really call it a huge dent, but more of a ding. And a couple small dings. This one looks, well, feels like it's been touched up maybe. There's one right here on the bottom that looks kind of touched up. But overall, this is a very, very good quality condition guitar for a 1987 Kramer that in most of the cases, these things were rocked pretty hard. These were metal guitars, high gain, fast playing, you name it. It's that style of music. And in pretty much every case, the people who played that style of music were fast and hard with their guitars and played them a lot. And when you play a guitar a lot, then you expose it to more danger, and you know, that's the nature of instruments. We do have a Dennis Kline signature here. Might as well see if we can get that to come into focus. Give Mr. Kline a little credit. Dennis Kline passed away in 2022. I just found out on Kramer's Facebook page. So that's a bit of a bummer, but he lived a long, full life, and he has a lot of these guitars still out there so that we can remember him and his art and work. One of the other cool aspects of this particular guitar is that the actual consumer warranty and registration that it was shipped with is still with it. And it is this Kramer document here. Let's take a look at the back. So this says owner's record, model K bar graph, and the serial number E12907. Date of purchase was 12/26, day after Christmas, 1987. What a great Christmas gift. Dealer purchased from Sam Ash Music Store. We don't know exactly where, but it does say equipped with Seymour Duncan pickups, Kramer. We are proud to be an American company, even though they don't necessarily build their stuff in the US by this point. Okay, I think there is, yeah, we can open this up and we get a consumer warranty that is just, you know, describing the warranty of this particular guitar. We have another Kramer guitar, inspected with pride. Model, the K Barretta with the serial number. Electronics, the Eddie 10-1, which I assume is the Eddie Van Halen. And the assembly, G5 10-9 or 10-1. Tuning, ST 10-9. So it went through a little checklist here. And on this back page, we have the Kramer Care, which tells you how to care for this guitar. So just a little bifold, but a cool little piece of media that still exists with this 1987 guitar from when it was purchased. So that's pretty cool. So let's take a look at the headstock real quick. We do have a Barretta truss rod cover under this little string tension bar, and that tells you what it is. It's a Barretta. And if we look at the logo, you can see it does say Kramer American or something. I think that's what it says, American, or I don't have my glasses on. But if it doesn't say that, then it says something else. But the point I'm trying to make is that these are not manufactured in the US. Even though there's this distinction that they are American guitars, it's because a lot of them, like this one, was assembled here in the US. And in fact, these necks were made by ESP in Japan. And that's no secret. That's something that's kind of famous about the lineage of Kramer, is that they tapped into the experience and the expertise of the luthiers in ESP to really fine-tune their necks to be what they are and what they were. And that's what they were known for, was their necks. Everyone loved the Kramer neck, and they really loved an ESP neck. So a lot of the higher-end guitars, like these Barrettas and the Pacers, were really manufactured in Japan or elsewhere and sent to the United States to be finished and assembled. So there is some assemblage and some finishing. Obviously, Dennis Kline doesn't live in Japan. This was finished in the United States by the Kramer facility, and that's where they get off saying Fender American or Americana, whatever it says there. I think it's American Edition, even though it's not an American-made guitar fully. So just keep that in mind. It's not important to me. Obviously, I think that there are amazing luthiers in every single locale, including Japan. They've been known for their fine guitars, especially ESP, for decades. So no shade there by any means, but when it comes to American-made guitars like a Fender or a Gibson or a PRS, you have a Kramer kind of sneaking in there, but it's not doing it in the same way as all of those companies. And in a certain way, Kramer was ahead of its time for outsourcing that part of its manufacturing to overseas facilities. And obviously the economy of Japan has increased to the point where manufacturing there has become cost prohibitive. But the same thing goes for a lot of these other companies. PRS SE, Epiphone, they're all made overseas, and that's these American companies outsourcing the talent and manpower of a place where it costs less to manufacture stuff. So that's how Kramer flourished, and that's why there's so many mix and match Kramers out there today for all of those factors. And it really is a fun and interesting world. It's kind of frustrating at times because you kind of think, oh, I figured it out, and then you're like, oh, wait, nope, there's this one caveat that means it's not that. So there's a lot of chasing your tail sometimes with the Kramer world, finding information. But if you just sit down and play these guitars and forget about all that other crap that I just said, then you're gonna have a good time. And that's the essence of what a guitar should be. You just sit down, you play it, and you forget what's on the headstock. You forget what's underneath the poly finish. You don't care, you just play the instrument and it speaks to you, and you can allow it to speak for you. So speaking of which, I will do my best to do that for you right now. Again, I am by no means no Eddie Van Halen, no shredder. I don't do the fast doodly 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 stuff. So bear with me. We'll give you some tonal samples and you can extrapolate hopefully from there. Okay, for the purpose of this sound demo, I'm going to be using the PV5150. What better amp complement to go with an Eddie Van Halen guitar than the Eddie Van Halen amp from PV, the 5150. This is 120 full-ass watts of tube power, and it is awesome. We're going to be using the orange 2x12 PPC 2x12 cabinet filled with some Celestian creambacks. Really sweet and loud and raucous combination. Capturing the sound on that left-hand speaker is my Sennheiser E906 dynamic microphone, and other than that, we have the guitar going into my pedal board. We'll test out a few pedals as well. But let's hear the clean on this thing. This is a humbucking pickup, so should be able to do some cleans. Let's hear it. So yeah, it does the clean stuff. It sounds like a humbucker. The unique part about this humbucker being slanted is that it's designed to align better with the strings, or at least to get the pole pieces aligned better with each string. And I don't know how that's actually being happened. If anything, they're kind of being offset on either side of the string. But I think it's a unique sound, and it adds a little bit of maybe some telly twang into this clean. So that's kind of cool. It's bright yet full and very usable clean tones. What I love about a single pickup guitar is that demoing it is a little bit easier because I don't have to dick around with the switches. But let's go ahead and hear that one more time with the whammy bar. This thing has been staying in tune like a champ. I had to fine tune just a few of these strings. Most of them were just dead on, and yeah, didn't have to do much setup. That's the real benefit of the Floyd Rose, but if you have to go beyond that, or if you have to change a string, it makes it a little bit more difficult. All right, enough of this clean business. Let's hear the PV lead channel on the 5150. The lead channel on the PV5150 obviously sounds awesome. How else would it sound? Let's go ahead and hear some pedals on the rhythm channel of the PV5150. This is the Kline. This is perfect, my perfect rhythm crunch channel, and I use this for anything that I need slightly less gain than that lead channel. This thing is capable of. So here is the Kline by JHS on this. So that is the 1987 Kramer Barretta from the Gregg collection. I love these single humbucker guitars. It's just so simple, so easy, so elegant. Maybe I might gravitate towards these single pickup guitars moving forward, we'll see. But for now, we have a Dennis Kline airbrushed shattered glass 87 Kramer Barretta. A guitar with a lot of class. And boy, does it feel good with a maple neck. It's super thin. It's not like a Ibanez Wizard thin, but I'll bet it's around 0.8 inches if I had to guess. And it stays slim the whole way. So just a really nice feeling, fast maple neck. As always, I like to end these videos with a few loops featuring bass, drums, and this guitar in a rhythm and lead context. So let me go ahead and put a few loops together and we will end that way. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you have any experience with this era of Kramer Barretta and it takes you back to the 80s or early 90s, let me know. I'd love to hear your old stories about your Kramer and what it meant to you. So like and subscribe if you like this content, and I will see you on the next one.